Well, sometime in the spring session, we expect Minister Todd Loan to stand up and introduce a modernization of hunting and trapping legislation here in Alberta. What does that mean? Well, I can't think of a better guest to help us walk through the ins and outs of this legislation than Kelly Carter. He's the CEO of the Alberta Wildlife Federation. Kelly, it's been a long time since we chatted. Thanks for making some time for me today.
Yeah, no, this is fantastic. I'm glad we get a chance to connect and to talk a little bit about this act that hopefully will come into force soon.
So let's talk about it. It was changes to the hunting regulations something your organization and other groups in Alberta were pushing for?
Well, as the organization that represents the most hunters and anglers in the province, every year we host annual meetings and events, and we get lots of resolutions from our members in regards to changes they'd like to see when it comes to legislation, regulations, acts, and policies. And so, what we're really happy to see is that some of those action items that we've identified over the years have been heard by the minister. He's taken it quite seriously, looked at it, and made revisions. And he actually tabled the act in the legislature yesterday, so it went through first reading, and we're looking forward to kind of see where it goes from here.
So out of I don't know, there's a number of resolutions or changes to the act that have been listed. Out of that group, what stood out for you the most?
I think the highlights that we pull up, when you first looked at it, it really comes back to what you just said, modernization. So we're really fortunate, and we're welcoming that the minister is modernizing the act, that he's recognizing the importance of sustaining and supporting a sustainable future for Alberta's wildlife. We see that these changes are not only going to benefit wildlife management, but it's going to make hunting more accessible and for future generations as well. And so some of the things we saw were the inclusion of digital licenses and electronic tags being authorized through the act, and that's one example. But also the adoption of modern technology and hunting practices. And one of those pieces that's there is the ability to use a laser when you're hunting, as long as it doesn't illuminate the whole animal. And there's pieces to make it more accessible as well, and support people that are in wheelchairs or that might want to get out on the land and explore this activity for the first time. And so that's really exciting to see that there'll be some opportunity potentially created through that. And so we recognize, regulated hunting is an integral part of Alberta's heritage. We have over 70% of Albertans that support it. And we just did a survey a couple of weeks ago to determine what level of support is there for the general public when it comes to hunting in Alberta. So really pleased to see that that number was about 70% out of the 800 Albertans that were surveyed. And they support it for both food and wildlife management purposes, which is what we support as well, as long as it's legal hunting and people are following the act and the regulations that are in place. And these changes that are being put in now really help move Alberta towards best practice and having some of the best legislation.
So I asked you what you took away as a positive. What was not included in the act that you were perhaps hoping for?
I think we're happy with all of the changes that have been included in there at this point. We have, like, it's so recent and new. We haven't had a lot of time to reflect and go through in detail to say, would we have liked to see these additional changes there? I think that's going to take us a little bit of time to evaluate. But on the pieces that are there, it's a lot of stuff that we can agree with.
Was there an expectation that perhaps there might have been some actual changes in terms of the number of animals or the species of animals that are being hunted or want to be hunted, movement on mule deer, for example, chronic wasting disease, some of the stuff on the ground. Did you know ahead of time that that wasn't going to be included?
Uh, I think when we look at the process of how these things are done and what's included in an act versus what might be included in regulation. We have to realize the regulation hasn't been tabled yet, and we don't know what's being proposed or changed through the regulation. But a lot of those items that you just talked about are more things that we'll see fall into the regulation than what falls into the act.
I guess one of the interesting components to this was the fact that folks who hunt cougar and bear no longer, once the act is brought in, would no longer have to keep the hides. I personally, I didn't know that that was a big deal whether somebody kept them or not, but it sounds like it was something that really resonated with the minister.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where obviously if you're out there and you're hunting it for the sustenance for the meat for it, to take the hide, there's an added cost, right? You have to spend a little bit more time. You get the hide, you take it out, you got to get it processed. And all of that, adds to a cost and a fee to the hunter. And some of them really have no interest in it. They want the meat. It's the substance that they're after. So in those circumstances, I think, yeah, that it is a good decision.
Of course, one of the other big, I think, significant changes, and something that I know a lot of people have talked about for quite some time, that is allowing dogs to be used once an animal has been shot to help with the tracking of that. And hopefully, that could go a long way to eliminate game that just if you've hunted and you've taken your best shot and sometimes you get so frustrated with trying to track it, hopefully this will really eliminate a wasteful situation.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think a lot of people will probably be excited about this and the ability to utilize that after you've shot or wounded the animal. If it gets away, that yeah, have the dog be able to track it will be critical to dealing with it in the most humane way that could be done. So it's good. And there's a lot of Nordic countries or that as well, where it's actually like mandatory to hunt with dogs or that with you. So it's interesting how, different countries do things a little bit differently, but having this option here, I think a lot of people will be happy to see.
With so many changes coming down the pipe here, is your organization doing anything by way of information out to your membership and others in terms of, okay, here are the new driving regulations, if you will, about what's happening out there on the landscape?
Yeah, I think probably one of the most important things that we're doing right now is just connecting with influencers. So people like yourself and having these conversations that get out there to support educating larger groups of people. I was joined by the minister yesterday at the legislature and was able to take part in the press conference that the minister gave to highlight some of the impacts to the Wildlife Federation and reinforce that we are happy and pleased to see that this legislation is being tabled and moving forward because we know sometimes it's hard to get an act on the table on the floor of the legislature and see such significant change that's there. But also, there's a lot of alignment and support from multiple groups for these changes, which is beneficial. So right now, it's the media just trying to get to as many outlets. I did an interview with the Lethbridge Herald this afternoon as well. We did some stuff on CTV. I was talking to CBC about doing a show with them, and then next, yes, will be communications out through our newsletters to all of our members to identify the highlights. One of the things that the government's done is they've created, the proposed amendments that are there, and kind of a little bit as to what that change is for each of the sections. And so we'll be asking if we can share that with the membership as well to help highlight some of the changes that are there. And we'll probably link to the news briefing that the minister gave yesterday as well, because he did a really good job walking through a lot of the changes that are in the act, or proposed changes at this time, and answering questions that the media had there as well.
You made a great point about the fact that hunting and the whole outdoor community, it's been a long time since any of that has been addressed at a legislative level, in the legislature. And it is great to see because I think we often look at, especially when budgets roll out, that's one of the smallest areas that receive provincial funding. So it's kind of nice to, and it is such an activity where so many Albertans get out to enjoy hunting and fishing, and to get the recognition and from the minister, and the fact that this kind of new regulations, legislation, I should say, has been introduced is really a positive.
Yeah, and I look at it, yeah, amending and changing acts is a challenging process sometimes to get through. Regulations are a lot easier to see amendments and changes to or that. So it's impressive that this is happening, and we're pleased that a lot of the resolutions and recommendations we made to government over the year, there's some action being taken on those. And that we're modernizing, that we're recognizing some of these things like electronic tags and licenses, which I think is important in today's world.
All right, Kelly, we'll leave it there. I know there's lots of new and exciting things taking place with the Alberta Wildlife Federation. And I think, as they say, this conversation will be continued in the near future. Thanks so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.